in this past year, African Americans comprise just 5% of home buyers, and the plurality of them had graduate degrees. You shouldn't have to have a graduate degree in order to buy a home, but that's telling you, that's showing you the legacy of this past discrimination, where people are having to get that extra education in order to afford homes at the prices that they are today. And then we talked a little bit about scarcity. One of the reasons homes are so expensive today is because we have too few of them. We have, by most estimates, 5.5 million units too few in this country right now. And so we need to build more homes. Now, what are the obstacles? One of the other things we talked about in many cities and states, zoning. And again, the notion that people don't want their situations to change, that having more dense housing situations may result in more housing that's affordable and more diverse communities. But we have to face this squarely. And we also have to acknowledge that, you know, when we build today, we are building for multiracial communities, that we have to counterbalance this history. The statistic I really want to stress to you is that because we are largely a home ownership society, where 65% of Americans own their own homes, but 73% of whites own their homes compared to 60% of Asians, 50% of Hispanics, 44% of African Americans. People are achieving wealth through home ownership. People who own their home have 40 times the wealth of people who rent. And so that's what people are losing, the opportunity people don't have. I want to tell you another statistic. When I was reading, I think it was an NPR story that talked about why Americans can't get behind measures that focus on this disparity, that are race conscious. And it said that most Americans, regardless of background, think that Americans have roughly the same wealth regardless of race. That they thought, okay, well, yeah, maybe African Americans don't have as much as whites, but like 90 cents on the dollar that whites have. And I'm like, really? And I'm thinking, well, where do they think we're keeping this wealth? Like offshore or something? But the real figure is African Americans have about 12 cents to every dollar that whites have. And I think part of it is people are looking at income, but not recognizing that wealth includes your assets, and that African Americans, not even a majority, own homes. And so when Dr. King talked about justice, and when he began to campaign for fair housing, he recognized this. He recognized that we were talking about not just unfairness, but he would call it, we're talking about segregation, and the slum economy is the term he used, that we were creating slum jobs, the slum economy separate from the rest of the economy, and that for America to be a healthy country, we were going to have to, one, lift segregation, but also recognize that we needed housing fairness. So in many ways, it really is fitting that the immediate memorial after the tragic assassination of Dr. King was this law. But now it's up to us to take it the extra step.
Thank you so much, Bryan. As you can see, this is obviously today's just a small part of a much larger conversation. And I encourage all of you to continue that conversation elsewhere. There's so much more that I wanted to discuss. We didn't even get to touch on the R word, reparations, which I think is certainly part of the conversation. I mean, in America, we're constantly about justice. When I've been harmed, how do you rectify my harm? If you bang into my car, repairing my car, if you harm my body, how do you rectify that? And yet we have never gone to the root of the harm that we have done to blacks in this country. And home ownership is just one part of that. So I thank you each. I know that we probably distributed some cards for questions. Are there any questions to be had?